To learn about the off-grid lifestyle and to be inspired to live your dreams, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Hit the bell notification. I thought I would go through and answer some questions. I don't get to do this very often anymore. I used to do it when I was a nomad. I used to answer questions every couple of weeks, but I've been so busy, I just don't get a time to really look at comments and analyze them and answer questions. But I try every now and then. One of the questions, and it wasn't a question, it was a lot of people did a lot of good research is what it was, and that's perfect. I said in one of my videos that concrete blocks are a good insulator. Now, I want you to be aware that the stove is lit, it is burning. Concrete blocks give you R value about 2.5. So if you're gonna wrap your house up in concrete bricks, you're not gonna insulate very well. Now, I cannot touch this. It's about as close as I wanna get to the chimney before it starts to get hot. The thing is if I stick my hand on this concrete block, it's cool to the touch. I can't feel anything. Now, if I take this off, see, that's hot. And I put my hand down in here, I can't touch the inside wall. It is very, very warm. So between this wall and this wall, it is basically insulated. It's doing very well. Now, that being said, I did say concrete blocks insulate, or a very good insulator. That was an incorrect statement. I didn't mean to say it. What I meant to say was concrete blocks retain heat. So when the stove dies down, and I have no more heat coming off of it, but if I stick my hand back down in that hole, it's going to be hot. That's really good because the heat is now being taken away from the bricks for another hour or two, maybe 3, and being pumped into the camper without burning any wood. Another question that came up about the blocks are, am I afraid that they're gonna break? And so I did Google them. Heat can break the bricks. And about 400 degrees, the bricks will explode or pop or break, whatever. But I'm not getting them that hot. If you Google surface temperature of a wood stove, it says about 250 to 300 degrees. I'm going to say it's probably about 300 degrees is what the blocks are actually getting to. So we're well within the specification limits. Another question was that, well, it was a suggestion that I put this on a concrete pad. So, tear it down, pour a concrete pad, and then put the whole assembly on a concrete pad. Because water is going to get underneath there and it's going to cause mold. And then when I turn the furnace on and the blower, mold spores are going to get into the camper. Well, I looked that up too. Mold spores die at 100 degrees. Well, again, we're at 300 degrees, let's say. So even if I do get mold in there in the summertime, as soon as I fire it up, the mold is just going to die. So I have no worries about mold getting into the camper. Now, another thing that a lot of people have been asking me is dangerous because smoke is going to get inside the camper. And I'm just not sure how to explain this any better. The wood stove is self-contained, okay? The wood stove is actually an indoor wood stove. My grandma had one inside the house. I played in front of it my entire childhood. It's a Franklin wood stove. Lots of people have them. So if it leaks smoke into the house, then it's a design flaw of the wood stove. What I did was I just wrapped the wood stove in bricks. And now the bricks are a heat exchanger. It collects heat and then allows me just to take the heat from the heat exchanger while the smoke from the stove comes up the chimney. It's 2 different components. Wood stove, concrete block heat exchanger. So all the seams on the wood stove, it's an old wood stove, I took extreme heat JB weld. Extreme heat JB weld can withstand 2,600 degrees. Well, again, we already know that the stove gets about 350 degrees. I mean, it doesn't get that hot. So the JB weld is holding up just fine. Another thing somebody asked is, boy, this is ugly. Yeah, it's ugly. Who cares though? We're out here in the middle of nowhere. It really doesn't matter. That being said, I am going to get some styrofoam insulation. I'm going to wrap the concrete blocks with styrofoam just to seal it up even better than what it is. When it's windy, I feel heat coming off of it a little bit more than when it's not windy. So the styrofoam would keep the wind from bouncing in and out. Another person asked about the tiny house. How are you going to possibly live in a tiny house? Where'd you come up with this crazy idea? Well, the tiny house is going to be 200 square feet. Tiny houses are typically anything under 400 square feet. In order to qualify for HUD, you got to have 800 square feet. In order to build a structure, in most counties, it's 400 square feet. So anything under 400 square feet is usually considered a tiny house. The thing is there's manufacturers of tiny houses now. They're on wheels, and so you can pull them around. And more people are really coming up with this idea. And typically, it's about environmental concerns. People want to reduce the environmental impact. To me, it's just everything's cheaper living in a tiny house. I can just enjoy my time being out here doing things like cutting firewood or building things, inventing things, whatever. I was kind of researching this a little bit, and I found out that after World War II, houses started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. In 1950, the average house size was 1,000 square feet. But back then, there was more people living in a house. So you had, basically for every person in the house, there was 300 square feet for each person. Today, 2015, an average house is 2,700 square feet. So another 1,700 square feet more than 1950. And each person gets 1,000 square feet. So studies have been done that when you actually downsize your life into a tiny house, you actually want things less. Which I found very interesting because I don't need things. I don't want things. I don't see myself, oh, I got to have that. Oh, I got to have that. I don't need anything. So I've had a really productive day today. Yesterday's video I showed you is cutting some logs with my reciprocating saw. And I was doing it for my generator. Well, today I realized how dumb that was. Now, before I tell you how dumb it was, the reason I don't use a chainsaw yet is because I got mine at Mom's house and I got to go get it. And it's just not a good time to go get it. Or I can go buy one, whatever. I just don't have one right this minute. So I'm trying to get ahead still by cutting some firewood. So yesterday I was showing you, and this is where I was stupid, I was showing you that I was cutting some wood up with my generator. I had a reciprocating saw plugged into the generator. Well, the generator takes gasoline, which means I'm not off grid. And I was really not liking how much I was having to use the generator to cut firewood. And then I got to thinking, well, would the chainsaw really save that much in gas? Maybe a little, but in the end, it's not off grid. So here we are, we're cutting firewood, we're on solar panels, and we're still not off grid. That's the part that I struggle with when we talk about off grid. You're gonna have to buy gasoline for your chainsaw, generator, whatever. Today I got up and I had this big stack of wood and I thought, why am I using the generator? I could use the solar panels. Right there. It's a beautiful sunny day. And so I did. I hooked up the reciprocating saw to the inverter, ran it off the solar panels. And the thing is I really thought that I was going to use a lot of energy. I thought it was going to end up using more energy than the solar panels could produce. So I was only going to get a few minutes of run time with the saw, and I have to let the batteries charge back up. But it turns out that the advertisement, I think they said 6 amps under reciprocating saw, but that must be startup amps because it was only running 300 watts, which is about 3 amps, maybe less. The entire time I'm cutting, I'm not using any battery. It was all coming off the solar panels and the batteries were getting charged. So this was the most efficient way you can cut firewood. Totally off grid. I didn't use any gas, didn't use any grid electricity. So today's production was completely produced for free. I'm really impressed with how much I was able to get done with the reciprocating saw too. Now, I will go get a chainsaw. I'm going to be honest, I got to get down in the woods and, the generator and the reciprocating saw just doesn't make logical sense. And it's going to speed up production. But for 3.5 hours, I did a half hour yesterday and 3 hours today. And I have now got a quarter of a cord. Based on all the research I have done, I know that I can keep my little camper warm with less than a cord of wood. I mean, a lot less. My 200 square feet house that I'm building is going to be just under a cord of wood. I'm burning a stick every 5 or 6 hours in there to keep the camper warm. It's a little chilly today, so I've got the furnace on. Now, I know in the wintertime I'm going to burn more wood, and using deadfall like this, I'm getting a variety of different woods, so some woods burn faster than others, but in the end, that means that if I work 4 days for 3.5 hours, I can have a cord of wood. I thought this was going to be an all winter, summer and winter project, just constantly cutting wood, but I'm really doing pretty well fairly quickly. So once I get down in the woods with a chainsaw, I'm going to have plenty of wood. So I hope I've answered your questions today. So thanks for watching.